Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the National Museum of the American Indian. My name is Kevin Lewis, and I'm the Outreach Coordinator here at the Museum for the Artist Leadership Program. Today we have 4 national and internationally known and recognized artists from the communities of Canada and the United States. They have been here in Washington, D.C. for 2 weeks, conducting research in the Smithsonian's collections in preparation for their planned community art projects, to either work with kids in their community or other artists in a workshop. This program offers an incredible personal and artistic experience that often reconnects artists to the indigenous cultural materials for inspiration, discovery, and a challenge to their own personal boundaries. There's an online application to this program that is now available under Connect on the NMAI website, and applications are due May the 5th, 2014. But before we begin today's program, make sure that your cell phones are off. And I would like to thank and give a special thank you to the staff of the National Museum of the American Indian and Mark Brexfielder for making this event possible. Today, we're privileged to have, like I said, 4 gifted and recognized artists whose background is in printmaking, Iroquois music and instruments, clay pottery, and believe it or not, bows and arrows, that I hope will enlighten, inspire, and challenge our creative thoughts. Please welcome Holly Nordlum, Nathalie Picard, Royce Manuel, Gerald Cournoyer, and panel moderator Rebecca Trautmann to the art panel discussion titled Bringing It Home, Artists Reconnecting Cultural Heritage with Community, a theme that is at the core existence of the Artist Leadership Program. Thank you very much and enjoy.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you for inviting me again this year to be a part of this panel. As Kevin said, my name is Rebecca Trautmann. I'm a researcher working with the contemporary art exhibitions and collections here at the National Museum of the American Indian. I'd like to welcome all of you and thank you for joining us for this conversation with the 2014 Artist Leadership Program participants. The title of the program, as Kevin stated, is Bringing It Home, Artists Reconnecting Cultural Heritage with Community. As Kevin stated, NMAI's Artist Leadership Program provides Native artists an opportunity to spend time doing research in museum collections, both here and at other Smithsonian museums and archives, to study and reconnect with objects and historical photographs and documents from their communities, informing and inspiring their work. Each artist participating in the program also commits to organizing either a workshop or a public art project in his or her home community as a way of bringing this experience and the knowledge gained from it back home. The artists have had a very busy week and a half, and so it's very nice for them to have this opportunity to share with you their work and what they've done here this week and last week. We'll begin the program with each artist presenting and discussing his or her work. This will be followed by a conversation among the artists about their research and the role of home and community in their work. There will be time in the second part of the program for questions from the audience, so we'd appreciate you holding your questions for the artists until then. Our first artist is Holly Nordlum. She is an Inupiaq artist and graphic designer raised in the Alaska Native village of Kotzebue and currently living in Anchorage. She works in multiple media with a focus on printmaking and teaches printmaking to Alaska Native youth. Holly is researching objects and imagery from Alaska Native communities, as well as prints in the collection. And please welcome Holly.
Thank you, Rebecca. Just going to bring this down a little bit, as I'm short. Uvanga atera metitkok, Inupiaq dun kikik takurumi. Very loosely translated. My name is Holly Nordlum, and I'm Inupiaq, originally from Kotzebue, and like Rebecca said, I am now living in Anchorage. I am a visual artist and a teacher. I do graphic design and received my BFA in graphic design and photography from the University of Alaska Anchorage. Last year I was selected as a Rasmussen Individual Artist Award winner, and this year I am lucky enough to be part of this program, the NMAI Artist Leadership Program. So I'm very blessed and honored to be here. Let's see. Just really quickly, a quick reminder of what Alaska is. It's very large. And Kotzebue, I marked, is very far north. Kotzebue is very cold, climate's very harsh, so a lot of our culture has to do with survival and beauty. But now I live in Anchorage, quite a ways south. And I grew up in Kotzebue, and growing up in Kotzebue, we lived a very traditional lifestyle. My parents were dog mushers. The picture on the right, my right, is my great-grandmother. It was taken in the early 1900s, I want to say 1929, Lucy. And she is on the beach. There's still ice out on the ocean, and she's stretching a sealskin. And then this cute little girl is me, and it's taken just a few years ago. But at this, we lived at camp, which is actually not even in Kotzebue. It's 30 miles away. So the only way we could get there was snow machine, boat, or dog team. And anyway, life hasn't changed much. That's the point of this slide. Life in Kotzebue is still harsh. In my work, I am a printmaker. I use traditional ideas, names, imagery, and in a contemporary way. And printmaking is by far my favorite thing to do. But I also do social commentary, speaking about social issues in Native culture. And these are made from beer bottle caps that I've collected. I've said this, and many of you have heard this many times before. I've probably collected 50,000 beer bottle caps. So I have boxes and boxes in my studio, and I'm planning much larger pieces. These were just my first two. The picture on the right is my cousin Kim. We grew up together. Our moms were very close. She died 2 years ago from liver failure. And then the other one, the one closer to me, is my little brother Dre, who was adopted by my mother. He is 7 years old now, but we got him when he was 2. And he was only in foster care because his parents had an alcohol problem. So I mentioned this earlier also, but alcoholism, when you say it, is a blanketed word, lack of better terms. It doesn't really get to the point of the heart of the issue. So I'm trying to bring an awareness with these portraits, with these images, that makes people think about it in a more contemporary way, and not a 1970s problem that doesn't exist anymore. I paint. These are some of my favorite pieces. I actually learned this technique, this skin technique, this rough, dirty technique from Sonia Kelleher Combs, who's an amazing Alaska Native artist. I cannot say how much I appreciate her teaching me to paint and to get that gritty skin feeling in the paintings. My project here, I'm working, as I said, I'm a teacher, and I'm working with Alaskan Native youth in an urban environment. So a lot of these kids haven't had a lot of exposure to their village life and connection to the culture. So my idea is to take 1 million images and bring it back to them, found objects, things I see here, and create a spirit board for them. They create a spirit board for themselves, and then from that we will create an art piece. We will be using painting, linoleum block, and screen printing. So these are just some of the things. These are a few of my favorites that I saw just the other day. And then the piece on the right I did as my own collage of contemporary Native life. I am honored to be here. Kavesuk Tunga, I'm happy. I have already gained so much as far as connections, wonderful people, and I'm so thankful for the Smithsonian for this opportunity. And thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Holly. Okay, our second artist is Nathalie Picard. Nathalie lives in Oregon, but is from the Huron-Wendat Nation in Quebec. She is a professional flute player, storyteller, and singer who also works with language preservation. Nathalie is researching materials connected to Iroquoian music, including song recordings and transcriptions, as well as bone flutes and whistles and other Iroquoian musical instruments. So please welcome Nathalie.
We are finding our voice again. In 1649, my people had to go away from Georgian Bay, close to Lake Huron in Ontario. Some of them went south and merged with the other Iroquois tribes, and a small portion of them followed the missionary east to Quebec City, where the missionary founded a mission of Jeanne Lorette in 1697. And still today, that's where we live, the descendant of these people, which I'm part of it, and it's a federal reservation of 1 square mile. Shendaiwas Nathalie Picard Hiati, Wendat Indi, Wendake Ekwayerti, Yandiawish Iwahityokutai. My name is Shendaiwas. It means she who cannot find a name to suit her. That's my. There's a long story with it, but I won't do it here. And it's a Turtle clan name. And I'm Wendat, Huron-Wendat, and we speak French in our village. And we have been working on the language too. This is a song I played for you that I composed, the first song I composed with my ancestral language. This is a picture of our chiefs in around 1905. In the middle, you have the father of my great-grandfather, Gaspard Picard. And he's here on the left, your left, yeah. And when I was doing the research at NMAI last week, I was supposed to go see a wampum because one of the archivists, Veronica, said that there was a wampum by the name of Picard, who they obtained by the name of a Picard. So she said it's from your tribe. So the morning I was supposed to go, I was doing some research on internet, and I found out that the wampum that Gaspard Picard was wearing was at NMAI number 1175006. So I'm like, could that be the same wampum? That would be too extraordinary that I would find it this morning. Sometimes life is just magical and helps you in many ways. So when I arrived at the archives and the collection, it was the wampum that my great-great-grandfather was wearing on the picture. 105 years later, here I am holding the wampum. This is some of the amazing things that happens when we go through the collection and work in this program. I'm very thankful to have the opportunity to be here and research our songs and see our collection, our objects. This is our village. Part of it is our village and part of it is part of Loretteville. It's not all Wendake there. The older part is at the bottom. The new part is on top of the image. Here you have Annette Vincent, who is our fate keeper at the Longhouse, and Michel Savard Tehari-Oulin, who's the keeper of the songs in our village, and it's on Bastien. This is in Huronia at the River. And below you have it's a historical house. We have old French houses on the reservation in our village, and this is where I'm going to teach the songs to the kids next summer, to the kids of our community. This is our museum and hotel. It's made like a longhouse, and the part on this side is the museum part, and I'm going to be collaborating with the museum in my project. I'm a musician, I'm a flute player. I studied classical music, but I prefer to jam and play jazz, funky music, and so that's my wild side. But I also went back to my roots after doing all that crazy stuff and started to play native flute 15 years ago, I think. I didn't count. And I play with different type of groups. I play with an ensemble. We play Nouvelle France style music. We mix the native flute with the old instruments of that era, and we travel to France a lot to play. And I also play with my husband, who's a flute maker, Dennis Hatch, and we played at Casa Grande Festival. And yeah. And I also play Cuban jazz. That was my main that was the main thing I was doing before I started to go back to my roots. I will make you listen to a little part of it, if I can find the, sorry. Okay. So this is with Yoel Diaz Cuban Jazz Session. Sorry. Sorry. So this is a completely different style, but there's a possibility to mix both. We tried some traditional songs and adapted to cha-cha-cha, because the tradition is alive today too, so we need to bring it alive today. This is at Canada Day with Gilles Sioui, one of our singers from Wendat people, and Florent Volant, who was with Cashton in Ottawa. We were representing a First Nation musician for that show. I also do storytelling and workshop with kids. So this is some of the masks I use in my storytelling. And I started to work on our language in 2007. It has been a great journey. It's a wonderful thing to be able to express myself with some of the words that my ancestors used, to find out the way they were thinking also through the language. It's a difficult task. We work with the Jesuit manuscript, and that brought me to Bread of Life in last June in 2013, which was a wonderful workshop with 60 people who were working on languages, endangered languages. And it was amazing to see that we go through the same things, same struggles, same passion, and we keep contact and we help each other. So that was a wonderful experience I was able to do last summer here. And I'm very grateful about this. This is our team. We joined Wendat, Wyandotte, and Wendat together because that's a sister language. So we joined the research together, and I was teaching at the primary school in my community for 3 years, around these years, 2006. And there's a tradition of folklore, music and dances in my community, but it's not the majority who knows the traditional songs from the Longhouse, because the Longhouse people, we are a minority there who do the ceremony. So I thought it was important to show the kids our traditional songs. And they finally sang at the powwow. They were super excited. I remember that day like yesterday. And in my project, these kids, today they are 18, 19, 20, 21. And when they have to go to high school, sometimes they have to go away from singing because they don't have the same opportunities, and they are caught trying to fit in the mold with the majority of Quebecois. And I thought this was very sad, so I'm a stubborn person, and I remembered when a young girl told me that she was not singing anymore because she didn't feel comfortable anymore to sing her traditional songs. So 7 years later, I'm coming back to try to bring them together to sing again the songs we used to sing and to sing the new songs that I'm going to find in the archives. We share the songs with the Longhouse people from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Actually, it's Huron-Wendat who made that the Iroquois Confederacy. So these are my goals for this project. I want to show them the instruments. I want to show them that it's not just the small minority at the Longhouse who sing these songs and do these ceremonies and dances, that it's all around the Iroquois community. This is where we come from. And I want them to feel good about who they are, because I find that it is very challenging, and you need to be strong to be able to walk your path with your heritage today in the world. But I think it brings a lot of positive and strength to a person if you're able to do it. So I want to help them continue in their path, being the different, unique people they are. We're about maybe 5,000 here on Wendat today, maybe a little bit more. And there's a lot hidden in the other Iroquois tribes. I think this is super important, and I'm going to help them to merge this in their today life. Like there's a kid who does rap, so I'm going to try to teach him a few Wendat words or phrases that he can incorporate in his rap music, and maybe this can bring them back to the traditional songs and bring it further for the generation to come. Like I said, I'm very honored to be here and have the opportunity to do this for my tribe. Everybody has been wonderful in helping us and intuitive at finding things for us, so I want to thank you very much. And if you like my music, if you want to buy my music, I'm on iTunes, and my email if you need to contact me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nathalie. Okay. And okay, our third speaker is Royce Manuel. Royce Manuel is Akmal Atham, or River people, from the Salt River Pima-Maricopa Indian Community in Arizona. He has worked for decades in his community to revitalize the making of traditional tools and objects, including water canteens, agave fiber sandals, burden baskets, and three-hole flutes. He is examining bows and arrows in the Smithsonian collections. Please welcome Royce.
Which one do you use to change? This one? Okay. Go back. Hello, my name is Royce Manuel. I'm from Salt River Indian Community. I'm Okmurdatam. I'm a river person. I am also a Coyote clan related to the Red Ant. Excuse me. A little bit of family background. Was one of my sons, was my first grandson. Even though a lot of people call me grandpa or great uncle or even great grandpa, that's my truly grandson. But I accept all of it. We have a blended family, me and Debbie, Debbie Manuel, and she's really a good help to me because we help collaborate together with the things that we do. We have a family that sings Navajo songs, so we have a really good identity of who we are as people, and we try to encourage that. I'm from Salt River Indian Community, which is located in the mid part of Arizona. The arrow is actually pointing to a small area right in the center, almost the center, which is the Salt River Indian Community. Gila River is to the south of us, and then Tonoatam, and there's also a small village of Akchin. We consider that four sister tribes. We all have the same language, live on different dialects, but basically that's who we are. Our tribe actually extends into Mexico, the Sand people near Rocky Point, and also down into in the Sonoran area, which is the Tuagatam, which is the mountain people. So we actually our actually tribal affiliation goes into Mexico. It was next one. One more of a background is that I was honored with the Spirit of the Herd Award this past year because of the work that I do with agave fiber and being able to teach. I've done a few classes working with agave fiber. The burden basket here, looking on your left, is that actually on your right, it's a basket that a man would make, made from agave fiber. The reason I was awarded was that the basket itself hasn't really been made for about 80 years. And so when I put it together, I did it by researching. It took me 15 years to get it all to this point, and finding out that I'm the only one right now in Arizona that makes it. But also recognized through the Native Peoples magazine, to the groundbreakers, because where people were being contemporary in their artwork, I actually took a step back and started doing old way of doing things, which is processing the agave leaf and also to making fiber, making cordage, and then putting something together. I was also awarded last year one of Arizona's Indian Living Treasures Award, which is a really good honor for me because I was put in the same category as some of the older people there, and they were actually 20 years older than I am. So to be in that category was a really great honor. Some of the teachings that I have planned to do with the workshop is actually understanding what we have here and put them in the autumn words. Hatput for arrow, Uasgat for bow, Hua is the word for deer, Vijana is the word for cordage, Ud is for agave, and Vijana for the cordage. Looking at mentorship that we used to have, because we had roles when we were in the olden days that were the grandfathers and the uncles would teach the younger men that were coming of age. Their responsibility is to recognize the boy's changing in his life. When he came of age, you can see the boy's body change, his shoulders are bigger, his voice is changing, all that was put together, and they said, well, we got to take this boy out and teach him to be a man. And one of books that was written by Anna Shaw, she talks about her brother that came of age, and his uncle had given his old shield so he could learn how to die. He had to learn how to protect and also learn his responsibility as a man. Some of the materials that I use for the bows is a willow, which is a common. We have a river that we're still able to get some. Arrow weeds, it's kind of obvious. Arrow weeds, we make arrows out of arrow weeds. But it's a common plant that grows where there's a lot of water. Obsidian, in a place called Superior, which is just east of us. The town of Superior is actually built where there was a lot of obsidian. It's laying on the ground, and so you just go over there and process. But it's also halfway between us and enemy territory. At the time, in history, our enemy was the San Carlos Apaches, so it was actually halfway mark. So we've had a few battles in that area. But they also call it Apache tear, the obsidian. The bowstring, this one right here is made from agave fiber. Like I said, we live in an area where we still have a small segment of our old river, which is called the Verde River. And so this is where I gather some of the materials. Prior to this program that I'm going to be working on, is that I did do a class for the Phoenix Indian Center. We gathered materials that the Navajo would use, which is in Navajo land, the cedar, and then we also got red willow shoots for the arrows, and we bring it into Mesa, and we had a workshop a week before, and 2 years ago, a week before Father's Day. So we got fathers and sons together so we could learn how to make bows and arrows. And it was really good because we ended up producing 18 bows and a number of arrows. So it was really good for them because now the children worked alongside of their dads or uncles, and they were able to produce something to go home. I'm going to go back to that picture. The hands that you see, his name is Freddie Johnson, and him being from the Phoenix Indian Center, also being a Navajo, because I was doing the class for them, he actually educated people on the cultural aspect of having to make a bow. So where I showed them how to make a bow in rough stages and actually produce one, he added all the other information about the bow guard and everything about it, and having to grow up and coming of age from his tribe. Like I said, arrow weeds, the feathers. We use turkey feathers, but normally we would use hawk feathers, eagle feathers, owl feathers, and buzzard feathers. So we were able to see some of that in the collections. Bobcat quiver. This is a good example of a father helping his son. And that's what I used this program to project what I wanted to do with this new program when I come back to our community. There's an example of the fiber that I used to make the bowstring out of agave. And down below is the deer sinew. So I do instruction on how to make this and put this all together. A few samples of my arrowheads that I've been able to make. And I've been making arrowheads for about almost 15 years now. So I've kind of refined it a little bit more than what it is now. But I'm hoping to teach a lot more people. When I was back in the collections in 2011, I was here for a different program, which is the Geha, the burden basket. But I did have a chance to look at some of the collections and the archives. And I'm really thankful for that because I already been working on bows because my dad was given one when he was 6 years old. The first time he met his grandfather, he was 6 years old, and because he was born in 1920, that his grandfather gave him a bow. So I still have that bow. And we actually played with it until 1980. My dad said, you can use it anytime you want to, just that don't get the string wet, because the string at the time was made from horse intestines. And so we would make our own arrows and things like that, but we finally put it away in 1980. But for me, having to look at the older ones, it was really something. Here's one of the community events, and I always take any opportunity to teach the young people, particularly boys, to shoot the arrows. And then this one is a real good one because if you give a child a bow, it only takes them about 10 to 15 shots to figure out the range of it. And so it's really a good learning process for them. I let them play with it. All the bows that I make are made to be shot. It's not made to be put on the wall, so it's not a decorative thing. It's actually a functional bow. And I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to come back here, because in this time around, I was able to see a number of bows and figure out what kind of materials was made. But this one in particular is really special because this bow and the information that's on it is actually Ira Hayes' bow. And it was for whatever reasons they came into the collections. I'm so grateful to be able to hold it and to see what it looks like, and knowing that it's a part of history. If those that don't know who Ira Hayes is, he's on the Iwo Jima statue that's in Arlington. So you see the last individual that's pushing up the flag, but that's who that is. And this is his bow. So that was really amazing for me to find this in the collection. Again, my name is Royce Manuel, and I work with Tools of Yesterday. So that's really where I'm at right now. So that's what I want to do, is expand more and more on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Royce. Our fourth speaker this afternoon is Gerald Cournoyer. Gerald is a painter and a member of the Oglala Sioux Tribe from the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota, although he's recently moved to the Washington, D.C. area. Gerald is focusing his research in Smithsonian collections on traditional symbols and mythological and cosmological designs, and is interested in reviving historical pottery traditions on the plains. So please welcome Gerald.
Hau mitakiapi, mato taota mieyelo. Hello, my relatives. I am his mini bears, Gerald Cournoyer, an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux Tribe from the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota. My father was Steve Cournoyer Sr., an enrolled member of the Yankton Sioux Tribe, and my mother is Pearl Ladue Cournoyer, an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux Tribe. I am the youngest of 14 children. That's me in the center with my mother. She's holding her most sacred child in her hands there. My journey as an artist began in second grade when my teacher asked, "What do you want to become when you grow up?" And I said, "An artist." During grade school and high school, my art teacher, Kim Vanderheiden, encouraged me to continue my education in art. Upon completing my Master's of Fine Arts degree in painting from the University of Oklahoma, I was juggling a burgeoning art career and a full-time faculty position. My art influences are Oscar Howe. He used his culture and legends to create modern paintings during the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Like Oscar Howe, my work incorporates mythology, cosmology, numerology, and elements of spirituality. Using mythology, there was a great flood. All the people were drowned. When the waters receded, the bodies were washed into a valley. The bodies were cut open by jagged rocks. The blood turned to red stone, the same stone we use today for our sacred ceremonial pipes. Cosmology, when a child was born into the tribe, they were wrapped in a buffalo robe, and a medicine man prayed with them to the morning star. The buffalo robe stayed with the individual their whole life. They painted, quilled, and beaded their symbolism on the robe. When they died, they were wrapped in their buffalo robe and put on a scaffold so they could be closer to the Great Spirit. As the buffalo were being wiped out, buffalo robes gave way to quilts, which have a morning star design on them. In keeping with tradition, from birth to death, graduation ceremonies, star quilts are given as an honor for the person receiving one. This is my migration from the Pine Ridge Reservation to the Washington, D.C. area. Numerology. The sun and the moon were married and have 4 sons, which became the 4 directions. The Lakota have 7 sacred ceremonials: the pipe ceremony, sweat bath, vision quest, sun dance, making of relatives, keeping of the soul, and womanhood ceremony. The elements of spirituality that I use start out with tobacco, which was hard to come by long ago. You can trade a handful of tobacco for one of the finest horses in the land. It is considered a great sacrifice to offer tobacco, and it's still considered a great sacrifice today. We use red willow in our ceremonial pipes. We harvest before the first thunder in the spring. The red bark is scraped off, which reveals an off-white layer, which also is scraped off. The next white layer is what we use, and we call that chonshasha. The way it was told to me was, you'll know it when you get to it. That was the only instructions. Trial and error, I guess. Geometric designs represent song, prayer, meditation, repetition of a song sung over and over for spiritual enlightenment. Geometric echoes reference the world, this world, and the afterlife. During the ghost dance, pledgers dance for hours, singing, chanting, denying themselves food and water. They went into a trance-like state. Crows walked among them, spoke to them, telling them of future events. The colors that I use: red represents the blood of our ancestors. Blue represents water, the giver of life, a cleanser. Green represents plant medicines. By observing the animals, we saw how they cured themselves with the plants. These are just going to be a few of the images, and you could see the pattern. You can see the references that I'm making throughout my work. So in this piece, I have 4 hidden ravens in there, and they're all in a different direction. So that plant life, along with the water and the blood of our ancestors, all coming together for this composition. You'll see the color red represented throughout my works. You'll see the ravens in there, and you'll see the geometric patterns. And as I create my works, I listen to music, and sometimes I start out with Nora Jones, and then I go, as I create more and more, it gets faster and faster. So I'm singing and dancing and painting away to George Thorogood and the Destroyers' Bad to the Bone, and just going at it. So you could see the compositions coming together and just how I lay these out. And sometimes you can tell right away if a painting is speaking to you. You can change color. This is based off of Fritz Shoulder and T.C. Cannon. So mine is Indian with coffee cup, and Fritz Shoulder had a beer can in his. So my research here at NMAI is on pottery. Members of the Kiuksok community on the Pine Ridge Reservation were very interested in this pottery. They either did it in grade school or high school or in college. And when I talked about getting equipment for the college back home, they said, when you start that, I would love to be a part of that. So that got me into writing the application, applying, getting accepted, and I'm so excited that I get to go home and teach this to the community. My investigation led me to works created in South Dakota from the prehistoric era. The twining and braiding was used to make decorations in the old village style. These coil-built pots were made for storage or hauling items, and they were pit-fired and polished with the stone. I plan to do my teach back to the community at the Pine Ridge Area Chamber of Commerce. And people are getting excited back home, and I'm sure there's a dozen or so watching today. I want to thank Kevin Lewis and all of the staff here at the National Museum of the American Indian for this wonderful program. It gives me a lot to bring home to the community, and we want to rekindle the pots that I've seen in the collection. They're really interesting, and it just gives me an overwhelming feeling that I can teach something to the community and they can pass that on for generations to come. So here's an example of one of the pots that I was looking at. And I love the design work, and if you could really see the twining, if you could get close, you could really see the twining in there. And the last shot will be of the Chamber of Commerce, and then the next one will be the Badlands. And there's the Chamber of Commerce. Pilamia, thank you.
Thank you all for your presentations. I'd like to start by saying that I'm really struck by how important community is to each of your work and by how much each of you has already done within your community to give back and to really work to maintain and strengthen traditional practices and traditional values. All of you have spoken of the value of teaching what you know to youth and other community members as a way of instilling or strengthening both personal confidence and cultural pride, and I really admire the work that you've done. 3 of the 4 of you, Holly, Nathalie, and Gerald, are now at some distance from the communities where you were raised. Will each of you talk a little bit about whom you consider your community or your communities to be, and how your work is connected to and draws from or responds to your home or community?
I'll start it. Damn, Gerald. Okay. I'm originally from Kotzebue, and that is a long way from where I live now. However, I keep pretty well connected. My family still lives up there. But teaching in an urban environment in Anchorage with the school district and the Heritage Center, I find even more rewarding. Just because a lot of those students aren't connected to their village, like I said before, or their families. So I'm starting from nothing, which is a benefit to me because I am no expert, but I can teach what I have learned. I have done stuff in Kotzebue, and I enjoy that too. But I find in the urban environment that I have a lot more freedom to teach what I've experienced. So I hope that answers your question.
It does, and you've talked a little bit about how, well, first of all, that your project your workshop is going to be in Alaska with the school district,
with the Anchorage
school
School District, right?
Right. Yes, I'm sorry, in Anchorage, and so you'll be working a lot with urban kids who are maybe less closely connected to their background. Okay, and would someone else like to?
You want to know about our community? Did I understand?
Sure. Who you consider your community or your communities to be, and how your work really responds to or draws from the community,
Uh,
and your home?
The closest people in my community are the Longhouse people because when you go through ceremony, and we did reburials also in the area of Toronto, it brings us closer together. We share the same values also, and for us, our roots are important. Also, I think the language team, that's also my community because we work so hard on the language to take a language from its dormancy and bring it alive. It's quite a task, and it's not always easy, but we work together and continue and bring new blood to that small community. So these are also part of my closer community, and I miss them a lot. And the fact that I'm away, I feel really grateful to have the chance to go back and bring something back, because you always feel that a part of you stays there when you have to go and you work on your tribal language, because it takes so much time to gain that knowledge, and then when you go away you feel like you're bringing something with you that should stay there. And with today, with the technology, there's opportunities to work from distance, so I'm going to explore this too, but to be there live with the kids and teach them what I can gain from my experience being in the US, I think it's going to open their world too and make them see that they can do things too.
Well, for me, I'm still in the community, and I've already did some pre-advertisement for what the program's going to do. And like I said, we have 4 sister tribes, so I've already been in contact with the people down south, and I even had interest from Colorado River tribes as well. But I even had a guy approach me from San Carlos because he wants to learn. The concept of making the tribal bow is not different, because there's a lot of the manuals that you have out there that show you how to make a bow are normally considered longbows, which is an English bow. And so that's their example, and that's what they use. Because I've come across different bow makers, and that's what they always use was a longbow. But what I want to teach is our traditional bow, because I'm lucky I have this old bow, and that's my model. And so that's my part of the project, is actually to re-educate the people that are within our sister tribes.
And I like that you talked also about really working closely with fathers and sons, and
Yeah.
really kind of creating, teaching the fathers to teach it to their sons, and then the sons will know how to teach it to their own sons.
Yeah, it's really important, because identity is our biggest struggle. We're in the middle of an urban area. We have Mesa on the south of us, we have Tempe that's southwest of us, we have Scottsdale to the west of us, we have Fountain Hills to the north of us. So we're actually surrounded, and identity is a big struggle, because they have to deal with the outside and deal with their personalities that are there, bring it back into community. And so it is an ongoing thing for me. And why I see it as important, because in another way I'm lucky too, is that I grew up next to my grandparents. They had no boarding school background, which is a big plus for me, because their attitude about teaching and having children right next to them, because they wanted us right at their side, and we walk along with them and do different things that they do. And they didn't have the restrictions of like some other boarding school parents or grandparents, which their teaching was the child's to be seen and not heard, and to be pushed away to the side, and have to grow up separately from the family. That was a big difference in me growing up. Because of that, I feel there's a dog in here.
Sorry.
But I feel that identity is the biggest issue we have, because even the area that I'm going to be gathering the materials from, it's called the Verde River. So the water actually comes from Flagstaff. It comes all the way down here to the Phoenix area. A lot of kids that I have taken out the river have never been to the river. So that's a major thing. Even when I do the hiking in the area, they've never hiked around that area. So identity is a big struggle that we have.
I think that's a nice connection to your planned workshop, Gerald, because you're also planning on taking people out, taking the men you're working with out into the landscape and harvesting clay, and then working from there to build pottery, right?
Yes. I really miss the community, the bonding that we did together, mostly with the men, going and cutting wood for the sweat lodge, gathering rocks. It really meant a lot to me, and to make this journey east gives me an opportunity to find a connection still with the community. I'm excited about going back home. I'm excited about being in the community again and teaching, which I've been doing for 10 years now. Empowering the students, empowering the community, showing them something new that they can use. And that's what it's really all about, is giving back to the community who has given so much to me and my family. So just as a way of saying thank you to them.
And I think you in particular have talked too about how important this project of reviving pottery and of helping people to make things with their hands can be to building self-esteem and self-confidence in a place where there's so much hardship. And is there anything more that you want to say about that?
No, I'm good.
You've all talked some about your planned workshops, but I'd like to hear a little more, hear you each talk a little bit more in specifics about what you're planning to do with your workshop, and about what kind of impact you hope that it's going to have on the community, and on and how it builds on or relates to work that you've already been doing.
Me again?
Yeah.
Really quickly. The workshop. The spirit board, having the kids find things that they're interested in and creating a spirit board, and then inspiring more work out of them. I'm not expecting to reach every student or even get every student that interested in art, but if I could reach a few students, as it only took one teacher to get me interested, that will be a wonderful accomplishment for me. But yeah, the workshop is being planned with the school district, so it's pretty regimented, and we're trying to keep it pretty themed. But hopefully, yeah, it works out well, and I can reach a few students.
And so I think you're both teaching them screen printing and also bringing back imagery,
Right,
for them to see from.
So we're doing a
communities,
collage, right?
so.
A collage, and then screen printing is an option. We might do linoleum. We'll have different things available for each student, and I'll have other teachers there to help me get each student through every process. So
I think to share what's in the collection, so they know that what the beautiful things that our ancestors did, and also to see the water drums or the rattles from the other Iroquois tribes. There's not so many makers of water drums. We have one in our community, and they don't get a chance to see it a lot if they're beside in the longhouse or for a few events. So I think this is good for them to see the different instruments. And since I was trained as a musician, maybe I can help, because sometimes the singers, they don't read music, and a lot of the archive you have musical transcriptions, so it doesn't do nothing for them. So if I can help them in learning the song with my knowledge of music and my knowledge of language too. I have a facility with languages, and we speak French, and that brings us a bit away from the other Iroquois community because of the language barriers. So, and at least bringing back their own language and using just a few words, you're keeping the language alive. So through songs, it's much easier to learn. That's what I found out. So they can use it through song, and you plant a seed, and later on you have a plant. So.
And I really like too that you talked about working with the kids to find ways of bringing the language back into whatever kind of music they're interested in and making it contemporary. So.
Mm-hmm. Even texting.
Yeah, cultural, I guess, confidence. Because when I think about the idea of actually making a bowl is one thing, but you got to think about the teachings behind it. Because I'm going to assist them to make a bowl, but once they make their first bowl by themselves, they have to give that one away. Mainly because it guarantees the next one they make is to be better than that one. For every item that I have that I've ever made, I've given that first one away when I completed it all by myself. And that's what I want to teach with them, but also the working with an older male to a younger male, and having to understand that responsibility they have, because if they went hunting with it, they just can't kill things. Okay, they just because the old teaching is that the first time they kill something in their first hunt, they don't eat it; just give it to somebody else. So they have to keep those in mind too. So there's a lot of different things that's going to be involved in it, more than just having to make a bowl, because there is a lot of value in what you do. The reason that Phoenix exists today is because we were there. We had a warrior society that protected the train that went to Phoenix. We also had our society also protected the traveling from that was going across country to California, and that was our responsibility. So it's more than just making a bowl.
And I think, and you're also going to take the group out into
Yes.
to collect all of the different materials
Yes.
that you use and make it from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
So I zoned out. Can you tell me?
Sure. Would you talk a little more about your workshop and what kind of impact that you hope it's going to have? I mean, you talked about this some already, and about how it connects to the work that you've been doing yourself.
Well, I hope to bring back what everyone's saying here, a sense of pride to the community, showing them something new that they can build upon and teach from generation to generation. What I've found in my research is that it doesn't take a lot of money to do this. It takes time. So a lot of people will say they have more time than money. So that's what I hope to teach them, is that they can take this art form and put designs in there that mean something to them and sell those. So as a way of profiting off their craft.
Okay. Now I'd like to talk a little more about your research and the time that you've spent here in collections. Would each of you talk a little bit about the time you spent in collections, what you've seen, what you've done? Have you found what you hoped to find, or were there things that surprised you? And again, all of you talked a little bit, or some of you talked a little bit about things that surprised you or that you were especially excited to find in the collection.
I wasn't I wasn't like these guys. I didn't find anything that was personally connected to me. However, I found so many beautiful and intricate small designs and useful tools. Some of my favorites, just thinking, there's a whole collection of dolls that are stone and bone, that are beautiful and have trade beads and are from the Northwest Arctic area in Alaska. Also fishing lures, I mean the intricate and amazing fishing lures. Just, I've been really surprised at how much is available here, and the diversity of the collection. And I selfishly spent, I don't know, hours looking at earrings, ivory earrings, that I'm sure my students won't be interested in, but that I personally loved.
Well, and this research is meant not only
Right.
it's both to take back to
Right.
your community, but also to inspire you.
Yes, and it has. I have so many ideas, right? Yeah. So, yes, I'm very honored.
I bought a buffalo horn flute in Seattle at a festival, and I thought, well, this is not traditional from us, but I'm so drawn to the buffalo, and I found a buffalo flute in the archives, the Iroquois buffalo flute, so I thought, maybe that's why I was drawn to that thing. I was surprised to find that, and I didn't know if we played flute. I know it's the Lakota people, it's something very sacred for them, and I found I want to research more when the flute came to our people, but I saw there was quite a few flutes that were used that I was able to see in the collections, and the most moving thing was when the wampum I was going to see was the one on the picture that my great-grandfather was wearing. Mm-hmm. It's like you just go back in time, and then it makes one. So.
And were you able to also listen to some recordings of music?
Yes, that's what I'm doing these days. There's a lot of recordings. Also, you need permission from the tribes, so I'm not just gonna take this and bring it back. But it helps to see how they sing it. We have one singer, 2, 3 singers the most in our community. So, and I didn't get a chance to visit the other longhouses. So, it's really nice to be able to hear them also explain some of the songs they're singing. I'm learning a lot listening to their presentation sometimes, or just listening to the language. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna try to bring some of them back. Some have been published, so maybe I'll be able to use these ones and bring some new songs. And I bought some of the folkways CDs, so the Seneca songs that Gertrude Curat, I have all she did a book and all the musical charts are there, so now I can link sometimes the songs with the musical transcription and understand more about it. So.
What I look at is that I enjoy looking at all the collection of the bows and the arrows, because it confirms and reconfirms the things that I do and how they're put together. The sadness is that having to look at because I looked at a list of itemized objects that were in the collections and how much they were worth at the time. 25 cents for a pot, $5 for a large storage basket, $4 for 40 cents for a saddle. Just looking at all those itemized items. But what I like from that is they actually have names connected to it from the Gila River. When you go back in history, one of the reasons that a lot of people were selling items is that when we had our river was dammed up, and we all lived off the river. Our existence is depending on that. That's what we're called river people. So the sad part of it is having to look back in the collections and see the records that were here, but to realize the changes in lifestyle that happened for that to be in the collections. But it's kind of both ways, emotional both ways, because for Ira Hayes' boat to be here, what got it to that point to be here, but I'm glad I was able to find it. It's just that I can't think about it so much, because then I'll get all worked up about it. But nevertheless, I do have mixed emotions about all of it. But I'm enjoying what I'm being able to find, and it encourages me to do more stuff. And so that's what I like.
Well, as a painter, I was drawn to the paintings. Some are very good, some are okay, and some are hard to look at. And then I started looking at all the tools, and you could see the progression. And it was very interesting to see some of the arrowheads that were metal, that were embedded into bones of buffalo. And I was thinking about Royce, because those bows had to be really strong and powerful to get that far into buffalo. But the research led to so many different areas. So I'm really looking at all kinds of stuff. I'm just walking by shelves, grabbing stuff, pulling it out, and looking at it, and then pushing it back in very carefully, of course.
Trying it on, then putting it back.
So I understand that this is the first time that the four of you have met each other, and you've gotten to spend quite a bit of time together over the past couple of weeks. Have you discovered some connections among your work, among your interests, among your planned projects or your research?
I'll start again. Absolutely. Gerald and I, with pointillism and his paintings and my beer bottle caps and friendships with everybody, it's been so valuable to meet these three other artists and just to talk with them and to feel so close. I keep saying I'm honored. I wish there was a better way to express how grateful I am.
I do think that's a really nice part of this program too, that you all come at the same time and you spend this time together, and you're obviously coming from far away from Washington D.C. and trying to get around, so you kind of build up a sense of kinship or friendship
Right.
as you're navigating everything. So I think that's a really great part of the program.
Oh, very good. Motivation, that's what I see a lot of, is,
Yeah.
while we're looking at it and things that we're finding out, it motivates us more to go back into community to do what we're going to do, because, even though our projects are completely different from each other, it's still a motivation for us to look at the children and try to present something as a legacy, that this is what you have before you. So that's what I see it as, it's our fact that we're so motivated for the help community. So that's where we're at.
I agree with everything. You don't have much more
Ditto.
to say. To see that thing inside that is driving the four of us, that is there with the four of us, it's kind of a family also, because when you share the same values inside, you feel close in a way, even if you don't know each other, just from the feeling close to our land and our people. It makes us close together. See, I should speak in French. Ça serait pas mal plus facile.
Well, as a young artist, I always thought that I was going to make $1 million just after I graduated with each one of my degrees. That never happened. And then I came to the realization that it's not all about me, and it's about something bigger than each and every one of us. And we all go back to our communities and we all teach. And that's a passion of each one of us. So I think about the music that Nathalie does, and I am inspired. I want to listen to more of what she's made. Holly's work, I'm not going to steal her ideas, I might borrow. And Royce's designs. So I really enjoy looking at their work.
Really quickly too, we all had to survive the metro together. So you know what they say about people who are in disasters together.
Are there questions or topics that I haven't touched on that you would like to discuss, or that you do have questions for each other that you'd like to ask here?
Can I visit your area?
Yes.
And bring
Please
some of
visit.
it there.
Please
Yeah,
visit.
to keep the contact would be nice, because we learn a lot from each other also.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we were in that experience together, so I think it would be great to keep the contacts. And with the people here too, because it's not just on a Smithsonian level, it's on a personal level that you share with people, and it takes a certain kind of people to work in archives and museum, and they're very respectful, and I was really happy to see that. And
Yeah, I guess the biggest thing for me is that being here and looking at what you have here, sometimes to correct misinformation, And that was really I know we were helpful in the collections because there's some items there that were mislabeled and whatnot, and for us to contribute to correcting that, I think it's going to be beneficial for whoever follows behind me, and the fact that if they go through the collections and they'll have better information than what it is, because we've been able to add a lot of different things to what is there, even here in this museum as well. So it is a struggle to get the information. I know the collectors, when they did collect stuff, they didn't make a lot of notes about it. They weren't doing research, they were collecting. And so that was a big eye-opener for me, because I can only learn so much information. But I have to rely on what people have told me in the past and see how it coincides with whatever I find. And that's a big, still a struggle, but that's part of the research.
Yeah, and I think that that's a very important part of the work that we do with the collections here, and we always appreciate people sharing, additional information or corrections to the information that we have on.
But I do want to shoot their bows and play the flutes, but I know it's not going to happen.
Well, just staying in contact with these guys through Facebook or email, and just continuing to have conversation.
And maybe this is a good time to open up to questions from the audience. Are there any questions for any of the artists or questions about the program?
We came in late. Can we get a reintroduction?
Do you want us to reintroduce?
Sure,
Just
if
who
you
you
would just
are
say
Oh, okay.
briefly who you
Go
are.
ahead.
Shendai was Nathalie Picard Yati. My French name is Nathalie Picard. My Wendat Huron name is Shendai Was. I come from the Huron tribe, Wendat tribe, close 18 miles north of Quebec City in Canada. But we speak a language that is part of the Iroquois family. And I'm a musician, storyteller, composer. And I work on the language.
Uvan atara metitkak, Inupiaq and kikiktarver. My name is Holly Nordlum, and I'm Inupiaq from Kotzebue originally, Alaska. I now live in Anchorage. I'm a visual artist, and
My name is Royce Manuel. I'm from Arizona, near Phoenix, Scottsdale Mesa area, and I do what I call tools of yesterday. I try to reproduce different materials or different items, utilitarian items, a burden basket, a 3-hole flute, bows and arrows, that type of thing.
Gerald Cournoyer, originally from South Dakota and migrated to the East Coast here. And I am doing a project with pottery and reviving some pottery that was found in South Dakota. I'm originally a painter, and so it's going to be a big learning curve for me to make pots in South Dakota.
Thank you.
Other questions?
I have a bit of a question, actually two for Gerald. First of all, did you say you're the 14th child?
Yes,
Is
youngest
that
of
your
14.
favorite?
Yes,
How do you get an MFA? I mean, that's just mind-boggling.
you spend a lot of money and go to several schools.
Yeah. I'm more curious about, and I do consider myself a potter, but I live here and volunteer for the museum. I'm curious as to how you're going to incorporate clay into your own personal two-dimensional work, or are you moving to ceramics for your own work, or just for this particular segment?
I was really thinking of just doing it for a workshop, and then I remembered that Picasso kind of dabbled in some ceramics later on in his career. And I thought maybe this would turn into something.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Your next million.
This is going to be the one.
Are you doing any clay work here in DC area?
Not yet. I was going to just pick up a bag of clay somewhere and start
I've
playing
got
around
one in
with
the
it.
back of my car.
All right.
pottery for the plains area is really rare. I mean, it was something that was probably traded for. Have you thought out how you're going to create pottery? I mean, pottery, like how you're going to fire it? Are you going to use a kiln or fire? Or you talked about finding the clay, digging the clay. Do you know where that's at?
Well, one of my friends has done some pottery, has dug up some clay and talked about how it's a different color, and so he was going to show me when I go back. And just looking at the pots that were created and actually watched a couple videos that were really, really, really old. And one is 5 minutes and the other one was like 25 minutes. But they showed the whole process of digging the clay, adding temper to the clay, working with the clay, and the firing. The firing was actually just in a pit or on the ground, using rocks to hold the pots up, low fire. And it was interesting to see how the Zuni had I always thought those pots were flat on the bottom, and then I saw the Zuni, how they made it so that it has an indentation on the top of it, thank you. And that's how they're able to walk with the pot on their head, and I thought, wow, they must have great balance or something.
But you're going to do coil, right?
Yes, coil, and there are some tricks to it that I've seen the ladies use.
As a cultural practitioner myself, I was wondering how intimidating was signing up for this grant, and how difficult was it to actually achieve the goals of the grant? And I guess there's 3 questions here. Because listening to you as applying for this grant seems much more intimidating, because you have a professor, you have another highly educated people, and somebody that just considers themselves somebody that is straight off the reservation and doesn't have a degree, but focuses entire adult life on retaining and promoting the cultural heritage of our people. How difficult was this to get involved with?
I think the application itself wasn't bad at all. What the hard part is, it's the logistics of it, and being here is great, and it's been busy, but Kevin's done all the hard work, getting our schedules together. So just, organizing the classes before I came, and working with the school district, working with the Heritage Center, bringing Tom to document the process, and finding Tom, and then getting him excited to come document the process. And there was a lot before I even left the house. I have kids, so it was a lot.
The education side, you can always find somebody to help you to fill this application, but what you carry inside, it's only you that carries it. And the way you talk and working at the cultural center, I think if you just bring yourself out, that's what you could do. And that's what could bring you here, I think.
What I said before about motivation, that's the biggest part of it, because the obstacles that are put before you, like the legal and obligations to the paperwork, that's really minimal compared to what you have confidence in yourself and what you do. And right now, all the work that you've done, it just shows that. And you know a lot of things. It's just like, I compliment you and Ron because we do things in a natural sense. And that's something that's lacking in a lot of different places. You have the confidence to do it, and you know exactly what you're going to do. You know how it's done. You figured out everything about it. You really don't have too many obstacles in front of you to apply for this. And your options are yours, and you know, whatever you want to do.
Just be careful in the subway.
I tell you,
I think you have the number of hours, you probably have over 10,000 hours spent doing all of the work, so you're an expert in your field. The hardest part for me, like everyone here said, it wasn't the application, it was the SAM, which was excruciating. So getting the contract through the government was the hardest part.
Oh yeah, that's right.
All three of you had the most difficult challenges with the system of word management in my career. Congratulations.
There's three of us. So.
The system awards management is a system that the Smithsonian asks people to fill out and register as contractors. The artists here are contractors to do certain activities and fulfill certain and provide certain products and services. So they have to fill out the system awards management's registration. But I always tell them that there's this little village in Cuna, Peru, and this little island in Cuna, Panama, and they're still filling them out. So, what's the deal? You know, they speak a whole other language, you know, and it's possible. It can be
Yes.
done. You know?
Don't get overwhelmed with all the thing that seems to scare you, because everything you have inside and what you do with your art. I saw your art at the Casa Grande, and you would gain a lot from that experience, I think. So don't just go for it.
Yeah.
You'll see.
And I would encourage other artists to do the same. I would. It's been such a valuable experience. I would encourage anyone who has any interest to apply. I mean, the technical stuff, Kevin will help you. Kevin will do it.
Yeah, he's smart.
And when's the due date?
So May 5th. May 5th.
May 5th.
May 5th. You have time.
And so, anybody that was to take any of your classes afterwards, would you recommend them they apply for this grant also, or this program?
Yes, I would.
Yeah, because you know you'll always find somebody that's outstanding in the classrooms. You know, the last time that was here, August Wood actually sought me out, find out somebody that knew how to make a burden basket. It took him a year's journey from going all the way to our sister tribes to come back, that I just lived right down the road from him. But his journey was good because he went all the way across the reservation and came all the way back again. And sometimes that's what's needed. And but because of that, he learned a lot more than everybody else. And because of that, his motivation of having to do that, it's really opened his eyes. And we invited here to join me the last time here, and he took a lot out of us. And it just right now he's on this mission. So when he gets back home, that's what he's looking forward to doing. He's doing a lot more.
Thank you.
Since government paperwork came up, I was curious what it was like to do these projects in the capital of the United States in view of the Capitol building, and whether that maybe made you think about the political importance of the work that you're doing, as well as its importance culturally. Not that we can separate those things, but I'm just curious if the location of this project had any bearing on your process in terms of thinking about what it means in a larger sense.
Well, I think the time that everybody is rushing up here, so you can get trampled on the subway because people want to get somewhere really fast. And on the reservation back home, you leisurely go along, you get there when you get there. That always baffled me about how everybody was rushing. And like this morning, I forgot my flash drive, so I had to jump back on the train, go all the way back home, jump back on the train, and then get here, and then I'm running across.
So you
every,
So you were one.
Yeah.
You were one
You're
of them.
becoming one of them.
And I was pushing people out of the way. So I've adjusted well here.
What was
Stay.
what I was finding really surreal is you're in these collections, like you're going in the past, really deep in the past, and then you get in the subway with all these people and you see all these famous buildings, and it's like you feel a bit it's surreal. It's for me it was quite an experience because I'm from Canada also, so to be here it's hard to explain but the difference than going into the archives and coming out in Washington DC was overwhelming and a great experience. It's inspiring because you see so much contrast. It's really inspiring because as an artist you can use these contrasts and all these emotions and put them in words and sounds. So yeah.
I agree with Natalie that the two worlds, right? This very ancient, when we come out and we're walking at the Jefferson Memorial, it's enormous, and I'm looking at little things, and then I see this big, the contrast is so huge. Politically, I hope that us being here, speaking about what we're doing, raises awareness to the Native issues, to Native arts, I hope.
For me, it's twofold because this is where whole United States started from. And the influences and decisions that were made here affected me over here, where I'm at in Arizona. And all the stuff that our tribe's gone through is based on here. And all the struggles that we continue to have is still here. Because we have to come this way to argue different things. Land-based issues, water issues, everything here is here. Sure, there's historical sites here, but that's why it's twofold. Because I'm glad that for the collections that I come to see this, but this is the issues that started the reason that we're having struggles over here. So it's a really big, different thing, to look at two different things. One is a recognizable Capitol, White House, and all the different memorials. But at the same time, this is what affected us where we're at right now. And so it is two different things for me. Because I'm trying to still deal with our identity, and that's my struggle dealing with my children, with the other people's children within our community, my grandsons, my great-grandsons, and granddaughters, great-granddaughters. Because I'm still trying to uphold their identity. And I'm constantly being influenced by outside. So that's where my struggle is. It's an enjoyable visit. I got on the subway on Saturday, and I was the only one going down the escalator, but somebody bumped me going down. There's only two of us. Why bump me? I'm the only one here. But I guess that introduced me to this world here.
Just really quickly, 1971, right, the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act. So my uncle and my grandmother's little brother were here. They were in their 20s. I'm 40-something. But they were in their 20s. They were in their 20s. They're here fighting for Alaska Native lands. And they were here in this environment and from the village. It just blows me away. That's from my Alaskan perspective. I'm very impressed with their ability to come here and fight for us.
Was there, like, each of you guys, did you guys have, I think Royce, you told me earlier, but did, are you guys, or if you want to share, Royce, did you guys have an artifact that kind of like stood out? I know you mentioned something as well, but was it like a spiritual relevance, I guess, that you guys found in any of the artifacts?
What I have found was, I can't even talk about that, sorry.
Okay.
I was looking at all these pots and the pot shards, and one thing kept coming up. I'd seen over and over and over, and I would see this image of a mound in my mind. I was seeing these images of these mounds that were on the shoulder of the pot all the way around. They'd have maybe 4 of them, and I found one that had 4 of them. It was a good example. The line work, and then I saw this spiral that started on the bottom of this pot, and it looked like just lines around like this until you examined it. So I see the same design up here in the front of the building. And so I was starting to put all these connections together, you know, these prehistoric pots and all of the symbology that is still being used today. And I want to be able to pass that on to the next generation that looks at these and says, hey, I know the history of this, the origins, how these were made. So.
On a spiritual level, when you see some of the sacred objects in the collection, you feel something. I don't know if it's a sadness or a sorrow, or I don't know what's the word in English, but and it reminds you that we're losing a lot. We lost a lot of our ways and of all the people that were there before. I saw there some objects are pretty strong still. The energy is there, so some of them are being handled with respect, and some of them maybe would rather be somewhere else than in a shelf. But I guess that's how it is. But yeah, sometimes you could feel like even the object, you could feel things from the collections there. It's not all of it, but I don't know all I can say more about that. That there are some sensitive things there, and I think it's good that like some of the objects that the tribes said is sensitive, so they're not displayed. And I think this is really important because maybe for some culture outside of native culture, they won't understand. But these objects are alive, and they're part of our past, and they need to be respected. And I think they are in a way, but also you have a lot of questions when you go through these objects because you wonder, and you see them in a drawer. The first time I went to the collection with Breath of Life, I felt a sadness around the collection. I felt like a heaviness. At the same time, you see like pieces of art that is not secret, and you see all the beauty of it also. So it's mixed feelings, and it's very moving. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a lot. Like I said, I'm so inspired. Spiritually, it's hard to say. Maybe when I am able to step away, that I will realize what affected me. It's very overwhelming to be here, so it's really hard for me to say right now, but I'll let you know.
Maybe I would like to add, since I was looking at musical instruments, I was looking at the water drums. And for me, the drum is really a sacred instrument. So I felt good about being able to see them. At the same time, I was wondering, should I be here looking at these drums? There was like part of me who felt uncomfortable even looking at these objects. But I know I want to use it in a good way. But I know there are some pictures I won't show. And but the knowledge that I gained from seeing the colors they would use for the drums, I would share with the person who makes the drum. So I think it's a good way to honor.
Yeah, because one of the things too, you know, when you see the items that are in the collections, is that I go in there thinking that our people need to know this. And we need to educate people, because there's a lot of things in there that people only talk about, like the basketry. You know, we're stuck on so many limited number of different designs. Excuse me. But when I came here, oh man, the vast assortment of designs that are there, it shows the creativity of the people. It's beyond what we have seen before. And that what really opened my eyes. So it's also one other thing too that opened my eyes, is that we're all the same. Before, there are struggles between what they call the Pimas and Maricopas, even though we live in the same community. We're not this different than the other group. And so I have to look at all Indian tribes and Native tribes in Arizona. We're all the same. We use the same materials. We do that. Where our struggles are the same. We survive the same way. And that's what we're seeing in the collections. There's only a few things that really have a lot of, feeling to it. But when they say, oh, these are, sometimes they're restricted, which is fine. But I don't go in there with thinking that I'm going to abuse that. And it's something that I think, like again, I was saying about identity, it's our connection to who we were at one time. And that's why for me, it's easy to go through. And it's just only in that one item that I actually had a lot of feelings for, but I understand the sadness and understand everything that's connected to it. So other than that, yeah, I'm so glad to be here with that.
It brought my art history courses to life, just looking at everything.
Yeah.
Actually, a slide doesn't do it anymore. You gotta physically handle something gently.
Yeah. No rivals.
I had a question about, because you were talking about making your first million with the and I assume your research is based on learning more about your craft, not only teaching it to the communities, but also advancing in your artwork. And so, have you ever encountered people in your own community saying, you should not be doing this, it's not for money, we only did this for our cultural values? And then my other, I guess, in addition to that is, traditionally we did trade and we did not use money, but we live in a monetary society today, and so the only way you would be proficient at making pots is if you did it over 1,000 times. The only way you'd be able to work on your shell work or your bowls or anything like that is if you did it more than one time. So there was specialists that specialized in these cultural art forms or crafts that you would only be able to do well if you did it multiple times, and through trade is how we subsisted. So how do you guys answer those comments, or do you even get them?
Well, there are some taboos that we're not allowed we shouldn't be painting, and those are some of the ceremonials. There are some out there, but they're not done by myself, or they're not done by tribal people that I know. So those are the things that I shy away from, because the backlash from the community.
I guess as a contemporary Native artist, I want my art to make people think, and if that takes a little bit of, not following the rules, I'm okay with that. There are taboo things, but I often do those things to get people to think, and to think about preserving culture and tradition.
I decided I would teach a few ceremonial songs to the kids, because they are our future, and to give them a sense of responsibility also, and a sense of being important. I can carry that song because we need it for the ceremony, and I can carry that song. But I want to bring the Longhouse singers to that workshop when I'm gonna do this. And I will teach more for the teenagers, not the little ones, so they can explain what it means, and they can learn the song with the teenager and then bring them together. So yeah, so then maybe they will become the keepers of our song, because they would say, oh, this is not just for pleasure or entertainment, there's something behind that. But I don't want to take the entire responsibility. I really want the Longhouse singers to be there with me, because it's a community process, it's not me. So that's the way I thought I would do it.
What I was kind of surprised at in finding a lot of this scratching sticks. You know, for those that are from our tribe, so we have a stick that during ceremonial times, particularly like after a battle, if somebody was killed and the person can't touch himself, then you have to use if he itched someplace, you had to have a piece of stick that was used to scratch with. Girls, during her time of the month, she would also have one too, and so she wouldn't touch herself. And that had a lot to do with it. But what I was surprised is how many were actually in the collections. But then again, too, that's when the world was changing, and so people were selling their items when they didn't have the river to, take care of themselves. They had all these. They had to make decisions on what can I do to make money, and that's what kind of surprised me a lot, is having to see so many scratching sticks in the collections. Yet those were personal items. That was a true personal item, because you only used it at certain times, and so it's one of those things that kind of baffled me too.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank all of the artists again, and thank all of you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah,